Blessed Theophylact of Oxford, the explanation of Romans, the Apostle, Epistle to the Romans, chapter 13. Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. Now that Paul has sufficiently attuned his audience's morals and taught them to be kind even to their enemies, he now gives this exhortation as well. He admonishes every soul, whether a priest, a monk, or an apostle, to be subject unto the rulers. For this submission does not challenge their godliness. Paul gives this instruction to show that the gospel teaches no sedition or insurrection, but rather gratitude and compliance. For there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. What do you mean, that every ruler is appointed by God? That is not what I mean to say. I'm not speaking here about every ruler individually, but about the principle per se. I mean that it is a work of God's wisdom that there are authorities, that some people are in authority, while others are under authority, and not everything jumbled together. For Paul does not say that there is no ruler but of God, but there is no power but of God. And so I think he is speaking about the concept of power per se. It is as if some wise man were to say, the union of woman and man is from the Lord. He is not saying that every man that is with a woman is joined to her by the Lord, but that it is he who created marriage. Therefore, all powers that we observe are duly appointed by God, whether of a father over his son, or a husband over his wife, or all the others. Even those among the animals, such as bees, cranes, and fish. That was 13.1, 13 verse 2. Whosoever therefore resists the power resists the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves judgment. This is so that the believers might not say, how can you mock us by subjecting us to powers, we who are to enjoy the kingdom of heaven? Thus Paul shows that whoever subjects themselves to authority subjects himself to God. Or rather, Paul puts it more frighteningly, that whoever does not subject himself to them resists God, who ordained the powers. And they that resist shall be punished by God and men. This is implied in the words, shall receive to themselves judgment. 13 verse 3. For rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. Will you then not be afraid of the power? Do that which is good, and you shall have praise of the same. Why do you shudder in fear? Will they rebuke you for doing good, or threaten you for practicing virtue? Surely the rulers are instated to praise you when you do good. Far from being a terror to you, they rather praise you instead. Verse 4. For he is the minister of God to you for good. He cooperates with the will of God. For instance, God urges you through the gospel to be self-controlled, and the rulers say the same thing through the laws. God exhorts you not to be greedy or rapacious, and the rulers sit in judgment over those things. Thus, if we pay attention to them, they will help us in doing good. But if you do that which is evil, be afraid, for he bears not the sword in vain. So it is not the ruler whom we should fear, but our own wickedness, which prompts the ruler to wield his sword, that is, the power to inflict punishment. For it is not for nothing that the ruler is armed with the sword, but rather to punish the wicked. For he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that does evil. When he praises virtue, he carries out the will of God, and when he wields the sword, he is the minister of God, a revenger of virtue, who banishes evil. Most people do not pursue good so much because they fear God as because of the rulers. And so, inasmuch as he is a revenger of virtue and punishes him that does evil, he is the minister of God. Verse 5. Wherefore you must needs be subject, not only for wrath, but also for conscience sake. You must needs be subject not only that you might not tempt either God or the rulers to wrath by your disobedience and be punished more than you can bear, but also that you might not appear unconscious, asinidetos, and ungrateful to your benefactor. For the rulers render many great services to their cities, and they are the ones by whom our lifestyle is maintained. If not for them, everything would fall apart, and the strong would devour the weak. Therefore, let your conscience, sinidesis, persuade you to honor those who grant you such great gifts. Verse 6. For this cause pay you tribute also. You yourselves testify you are well served by your rulers because you pay taxes to them. It is obvious that you do this because they look after you. After all, we would never have begun paying taxes in the first place if we had not known that we would profit from their governance, where the rulers are the ones who watch over us and we are left carefree. For they are God's ministers attending continually upon this very thing. Thus God also approves of paying taxes to his ministers, for God desires peace and virtue to reign, and evil to be banished. And in this the rulers minister according to God's will, labouring for the common good, and attending continually upon this very thing, that we might live in peace and tranquillity. But if a ruler should abuse his position, this in no way affects the utility of the thing per se. Verse 7. Render therefore to all their dues, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to whom custom, fair to whom fair, honour to whom honour. You are under a strict obligation to show gratitude to your rulers. Render therefore to all their dues, to those that have been entrusted with various positions of authority. Tribute to whom tribute is due, that is, the poll tax. Custom to whom custom, that is, taxes on the produce of the land. And not only money, but also fair, that is, respect and reverence, and commensurate honour. For Paul also says honour to whom honour. Now there are two kinds of fear. One kind is the fear of those who have transgressed, rising from a guilty conscience. This is the fear that the apostle has already spoken against. The other kind is the fear that loved ones have towards those that they love, that is extreme respect, as it says, for there is no want to them that fear him. And the fear of the Lord is clean, enduring forever. Here he means reverence.